When Monster Hunter World released in January 2018, I don't think anyone in the community could have predicted the level of success it would achieve. Over the years, the game has sold over 27 million copies according to VG charts, and that's not even including its Iceborne expansion, which has gone on to sell over 14 million units. This level of commercial success solidified it as Capcom's most successful game of all time, which is saying a lot when you consider that this is the same publisher that works on series like Street Fighter, Resident Evil, Mega Man, and Devil May Cry. Another interesting factor in Monster Hunter World's success is that it was actually hampered by the fact that Capcom chose to only focus on consoles for its initial release. This means that the PC version only released 7 months later, but it was still able to achieve a very impressive 329,000 peak concurrent users on Steam. But one of the things that is even more impressive is the fact that as of the recording of this video, it still boasts a 24-hour concurrent peak of over 80,000 users. We're talking about a game that is over 7 years old and hasn't received any new content in over 4 years. With this level of success, it can be easy to forget that this is actually a series that struggled for a very long time to gain a foothold in the West. Its biggest claim to fame was actually in its home turf of Japan, where the game was wildly popular. The gameplay loop of hunting monsters for parts to make better gear to enable you to hunt harder monsters has always been something uniquely special in the way Monster Hunter manages to do it. But I think out of all of the games I've ever played, this has to be the series that owes its level of success to the dedicated community that formed around their games the most. You see, an interesting fact that some of you might not be aware of is that my first entry into the series didn't actually click with me. And strangely enough, it didn't click with my good friend Gaijin Hunter either. And I'm sure that like us, there are numerous stories of other hunters that came into the franchise and didn't initially stick with it. If this is you or one of your friends, sound off in the comments and tell us your story. I love reading about how people got into the game. Also, while you're down there, make sure to hit that like button as it really helps, and subscribe for more Monster Hunter content. Now, the year is 2009. I had bought a Wii the previous year after dropping out from my World of Warcraft addiction, and I was now playing games like Metroid and Zelda for the very first time. I know, you can blame my parents for not properly educating me in the realm of video games. I have a friend of mine who always kept telling me about this PlayStation Portable game he played all the time called Monster Hunter, where he would hunt this monster called Ratalos. That's how he pronounced it. So when I hear about a Monster Hunter game called Monster Hunter Tri, I call up my friend. Yeah, back in the 2000s we would actually use our phones to call each other through voice. I know that this is going to come as a shock for some of you. But anyway, I call up my friend and I ask him if I should buy this Monster Hunter Tri game. Naturally, he once again tells me all about how this is his favorite series and it will be awesome, and we chat about it for like an hour. Now, it's important to mention he doesn't really have a Wii, so we never really planned on playing together. This was going to be my solo introduction into the series. So I bought some weird collector's edition, had like this paper chest looking thing, and it also came with a traditional gamepad for the Wii. For those that never had a Wii, it had this weird controller setup of the Wiimote and the nunchuck and all of that stuff. And then I booted up the game and I didn't really like it. It's a strange thing to describe today, but I guess it was because I had this preconceived notion that it was going to play like some kind of a traditional RPG where you go through a level, you kill some small monsters, and then you face off against the big boss at the end. Naturally, Monster Hunter is very different, so I kept at it for a while, never really understanding or engaging with the game's many systems, and eventually I just dropped it because I didn't get it at all. Fast forward to several years later, I don't remember the actual year, but I now own a PlayStation Vita. And I see in the sales that there's this Monster Hunter Freedom Unite game selling for like €5. Again, I call my friend about it, and since it's only €5, I end up buying it, and then I go to his place to have him actually explain to me how the game works. I mean, there's clearly something there since he's always talking up this series to me. So I get to his place and we start messing around with settings and stuff like that, and it turns out that you can actually play multiplayer across a PlayStation Vita and a PlayStation Portable seamlessly using the ad hoc functionality. Now this concept completely blew my mind, and by the way, I believe that ad hoc play is likely the main reason for the series' success in Japan. The whole concept of you having what is essentially a portable LAN party at a friend's house or even on the train, in the cafe, or other public places was mind-blowing to me. You have to remember that I came from a PC background. My idea of a LAN party involves lugging around a beefy rig, a monitor, mouse and keyboard, and setting this whole thing up somewhere else. So when I saw that you could just do multiplayer wirelessly from a handheld, it was a turning point. And to this day, I wish more devices supported this functionality, which is why I like the Nintendo Switch so much. Ad hoc multiplayer is absolutely amazing. But getting back to it, the first thing my friend wants to teach me is to choose a weapon, which is something that never even crossed my mind. I always just thought, why wouldn't I just use whichever one does the most damage? Which I think is likely the way most people outside the series would look at their weapon choice, and this is how we end up with so many greatsword mains that can't land the wake-up attack to save their lives. So as he starts telling me all of the weapons in the game, one instantly stands out. The Gun Lance, which reminded me of the Gunblade from Final Fantasy VIII, so I instantly say, yup, that's the one. At which point he proceeds to try and convince me that choosing that one in particular is actually a really bad idea. He wasn't wrong, by the way. But after all of this, we finally go on a few hunts and he starts explaining to me the crafting system, and that's when things finally clicked. You choose a cool weapon, you fight a big monster, you make a bigger version of that cool weapon, you make some beefier armor, and then you fight a bigger monster and you repeat the process. Naturally, there's much more to it, like the immersion of all the hunting systems, such as chasing after the monster, eating to replenish stamina, sharpening to maintain your weapon, and even crafting supplies while hunting and all of the pre-hunt preparation. All of this makes for one of the most unique experiences in gaming, one that quite simply no other game has actually managed to properly emulate. There's just something about Monster Hunter that keeps us all coming back for more, from the immersion to the atmosphere to the combat, and most importantly, the monster design. Now you might hear all of this and think to yourself, yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but I still can't get into this clunky combat, which is understandable. And I want you to know that likely a lot of us have felt the exact same way when we got started. But the important thing is to stick with it long enough to at least learn one weapon. This might not even be the weapon that you identify with the most, but try out different ones just to see if there's that one weapon you can kind of get by with just to complete a few hunts and engage with the gameplay loop I mentioned above. Because one of the things that you'll notice very quickly is that in learning just one weapon you kind of know how to play, you'll organically also learn monster openings that you can exploit, which will then allow you to get more comfortable with other weapons you might want to master. And if you stick with it long enough, it's likely you'll end up having your own click moment somewhere along that process. And my hope is that you'll come to understand why our community is so passionate about this game and why we want you to join in on the fun. The payoff for this game clicking for you is one of the biggest and most unique in gaming right now, but I should say I am biased. If you are yet to click with this series, then leave me a comment with what is your biggest struggle or why specifically it hasn't clicked with you yet, because I'm genuinely curious. Now, it's important to mention again that I would have never clicked with this series without the community that organically formed around the game. In my case, initially, it was my friend who pretty much took me by the hand and showed me the ropes. Later on, it was Gaijin through his many tutorials for old school Monster Hunter. And nowadays, I try to pass on what I've learned throughout the years to foster this growing and incredibly welcoming community. I guess it's appropriate I chose to record this video during Thanksgiving because even though I don't really celebrate it, since despite my American accent, I'm actually Portuguese, I definitely have a lot of things to be thankful for with this community, since you all have quite literally changed my life for the better. So, thank you, Monster Hunter community, for supporting this awesome game long before it was ever a successful franchise in the West, and also thank you for supporting my content. And finally, thank you, the Monster Hunter team, for continuing to make this incredibly special game for all of us. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I hope you get to spend some time with your family today. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe, peace out.